Are we live?
Yep.
All right.
1, 2, 3, go.
So, are we live?
Yes.
All right, time for a 5. See the courthouse? That was built in 1858. That was 2 years before the Civil War began. And since we're reviewing for your AP exam, let's talk about the Civil War. All right. Remind yourselves that there were an attempt at compromise for many decades prior to the Civil War. You can go back to the 1820s with the Missouri Compromise, which gave us the 3630 parallel line. States north of that would be free. Yeah, that's that. Just bear with it, okay? Bear with it. So you've got the Missouri Compromise. Northern states of the 3630 line are going to be free. Southern states are going to be slave, except for, of course, there was much of that land south of the line belonged to Mexico until the Mexican-American War. That Mexican-American War got the land for the United States, and immediately, remember Emerson's famous quote, Mexico is going to poison us? Yeah, well it did, because by 1850 to 1861, we're on our way to a civil war. Compromise of 1850 gave California a free state, brought the Fugitive Slave Act into place, and America begins to just kind of crumble. Popular sovereignty is designed to be the savior, didn't save anything, and by 1861, we got ourselves a civil war. So, if you want to scan around, I am standing in Franklin Square, a town that was built in 1799, and in November of 1864, this was the site of a pretty bloody battle. The battle only lasted for 5 hours. This is not going to be on the AP exam, but you might as well know it. 5 hours, 2,000 dead. Bodies were stacked and piled and strewn all over the place. Many of the buildings, most of which don't stand anymore, were used as hospitals for months following it. But it was in 1863 that President Lincoln, remember, issued the Emancipation Proclamation. How many slaves were freed? 0, because it applied only to the rebellious Southerners. But follow me, this statue, which you can see down here, is for the United States Colored Troops, 1863, right after the Emancipation Proclamation. The Union begins to enlist black soldiers, and some even from the South, but most obviously from the North, enlist to fight for the very country that was treating them as second-class citizens, if that. And of course, we're enslaving them. 200,000 would eventually join the Union, and they would help to fight and win the war for the Union. 1865, of course, the Union will finally win the war. Now, scan over there. We're going to walk across the street. I'm going to risk my life yet again so that you get a 5. We're going to go talk about this Confederate monument. Follow me. Oh, we got daylight. We got daylight.
Oh. Okay. Hold on. No one die. Ah.
Are we live? Are we live?
Yes.
All right. So these are actual cannon from the Civil War period. There's 4 of them.
Ooh, am I allowed to be on here? Sorry for this awful
You'll
handheld.
see that this obelisk to our Confederate soldiers, erected to the Confederate soldiers by Franklin chapter of the Daughters of the Confederacy, November 30th, 1899. That's exactly 30 years after the Battle of Franklin, which occurred on November 30th, 1899. If you scan up, you'll see the Confederate soldier. This is one of thousands that were put up in the late 1800s. This might remind you, in 1896, a very famous Supreme Court case was passed. Do you remember it? Come on now. Plessy v. Ferguson. Remember that one? Separate but equal. So by 1899, this is a statue that is essentially, well, follow me around. I'll tell you what it says on this side, if I can read it. It's kind of, it's hard to read.
Would not it be a blame for us if their memory?
Memory.
No.
Yes.
Memory? Something? Something?
It'd be a shame to us if we forget them. That's the translation. So here you are 30 years after the Civil War, and the Daughters of the Confederacy are doing everything in their power to try to maintain the memory of the Civil War. But by 1899, Jim Crow, Plessy v. Ferguson, the entire Reconstruction effort that's ended in 1877 is in full steam ahead, and it would be another 50 years, we're going to get to that in period 8, before the civil rights movement really starts with earnest. So this is you can turn around again. This is the famous Franklin, Tennessee Square. Many of these buildings were built in the early 1800s. Some of them are still standing. And this is the site of one of the last big bloody battles of the Civil War. In fact, it would just be a couple weeks later, they would be north of us, about 20 miles up in Nashville. And there the Union would defeat the Confederate Army in the Battle of Nashville. Are you studying? You better be. Let's go.